So, welcome to Sarah's Country Tonight, Susan Kilsby, agriculture economist for ANZ, to discuss her budget wish list. And of course, I want to sort of discuss where does the economic stimulus lie when we have the government books and, of course, our private banks. So, to kick it off, Susan, talking about the wish list, there is a number of places across the sector that, of course, could bring stimulus. It's not just under the primary industries. What are you sort of looking for tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow I'm not sure we're going to get a whole lot of detail around actual projects that they're going to fund. I think what we might see is a lot more around the framework of how they're going to, what sort of criteria they're going to apply to projects going forward. But there's certainly some areas that, I would like to see them invest in. But I think they all really need to be areas that enable the private sector to then invest further. So I guess there's three kind of areas that I'm keen to see. I mean, the first one kind of relates around infrastructure. So in a couple of areas there are around technology. So we're all using more and more technology and platforms and also more technical solutions on our farms. So I think we need to make sure we've got the underlying technology platforms available to enable that going forward. And also around infrastructure, we need to store more water. I mean, we have great rainfall here in New Zealand. But a lot of it gets, washed out to sea and we don't make the most of what we have. So projects around water storage and reticulation, I think, are absolutely key. The second area I think we need to see more funding in is really our local and regional governments. So at the moment, they're not so much of an enabler of investment. They're pretty much the opposite. There's a lot of red tape. It's hard to get permits. It's hard to get a lot of certainty. There isn't the support in those areas. If you need support on how permits should be filled in, what is acceptable, what isn't. So that area, I think we need a lot more funding and for them to become enablers rather than just more red tape, really. And then I think the third main area is around sort of investment in science and knowledge transfer. So more funding for a lot of this research that we're doing, and then also ways to transfer that out to the rural sector, which will also encourage, I think, more people into rural sector jobs as well. So they're my sort of key areas, Sarah.
Absolutely. I was just thinking there, we should have our hand out in rural media, being able to transfer wonderful science knowledge just as much. But no, so I was just also thinking, we always name these budgets, don't we? The mother of all budgets and the wellbeing budgets. I think what rural New Zealand really wants is the certainty budget.
Absolutely. And it's that lack of certainty that makes it really challenging for people to invest and also for banks to support people in their investments. When there's so much lack of certainty as to whether, for instance, how your farming is going to be allowed in the future, or a lot of areas that are just making it really challenging to know where things are going to be looking forward.
Certainly. So the Epidemic Response Committee meeting with Simon Bridges chaired today was with a lot of the economists. I'm sure you were watching there, Susan. There was a bit of a division there across some of these independent economists, I found, of whether a negative OCR is a good or bad thing, and that the Reserve Bank is really sitting on too much in terms of the fact to buffer the government debt books. What do you believe is the right mix of monetary policy?
Certainly what we saw, the response we saw today from the Reserve Bank, they haven't ruled negative interest rates out going forward. They certainly, what they normally do is give a view on where the OCR will go going forward. And they've chosen not to do this at this point. So it means negative interest rates is still a possibility, but certainly not a possibility in the immediate future because banking systems aren't set up to deal with negative interest rates at the moment. So while they have been used in other parts of the world, and there is some, I guess, some reasonable reasons for using them, it's not a policy that we particularly prefer. And we see, continued expansion of the QE program, so the quantitative easing program, where they're buying up bonds, creating liquidity, and using that to push down interest rates is the better option in the immediate term.
I'm sure you wouldn't like the idea of negative interest rates, Susan at ANZ. But in saying that, when I spoke to Minister O'Connor, he mentioned that there was a lot of pressure on the banks to effectively be nicer to farmers and take the pressure off. Is that just him saying that, or has that actually been the case in supporting people through?
I'm not sure exactly where he's coming from in at that sense. I mean, we're always trying to support as many farmers as possible, through all situations. And so, I mean, nothing's really changed in terms of, bank lending policies as such. We'll certainly look forward, look to lend funds to as many people as we can and continue to do that. But it really does come down to, responsible lending as well. And, for some businesses, there's going to be some real challenges going forward with what we're seeing with COVID-19. And it wouldn't be responsible to continue to lend to some of those businesses as well if they don't have a longer term future.
So are you saying that unviable businesses pre-COVID shouldn't deserve to come out the other side viable?
Well, I mean, every business can change and turn around, and some businesses are benefiting out of the situation, but most won't be. So every situation's different, and every situation gets treated on its individual merits. So at the moment, we are seeing things like interest rates easing, and that's going to help. Some people. We're also seeing, land values easing back as well, which, for some people who might be buying their first farm, that might be helpful, but for a lot, for most people, it's not. So it really comes down to the mix and how that impacts each individual business.
Just going to a macro perspective, of course, with regards to commodity markets that you follow closely, Susan, how are you feeling about our future in the immediate sort of 6 to 12 months?
I mean, I think it's going to be pretty challenging for the next 6 to 12 months. We do see prices sort of easing in a lot of major markets. I mean, that said, it's going to be really challenging for a lot of businesses, and the food sector in general will come out of this better than a lot of other sectors. But that said, it's like we're a slightly brighter light where everyone else's lights have dimmed even further. It's certainly going to be challenging for a lot of businesses and our farmers as well, and particularly our farmers who are have the immediate challenge of dealing with drought as well at the moment. So there's some really tough challenges out there. But certainly the longer term future, does look strong, and I think the food producing sector is going to come out of this much stronger than a lot of other sectors.
Susan, just to wrap it up, because we like to have a bit of fun here in Sarah's Country, and I know that you do as well. Do you enjoy going to the races, and the thought of the races not being a part of our Kiwi culture, does that sort of bother you? Would that sadden you?
To be honest, I do go to the races occasionally, but I'm not really interested in gambling. I'm more looking at the horses and more that side of it and the socialising side. It is something that I think is part of our culture and I like, but I certainly probably not as excited about it as Winston Peters is. I'm usually tend to be looking at the horses and wondering if I can turn them into show jumpers or not, rather than looking at them for their racing abilities.
Oh, and certainly a lot of ex-race horses off the track have turned into some very good equestrian horses as well. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us with your great insights. As always, ANZ agricultural economist Susan Kilsby.
This is Sarah's Country.